What's going on, everyone? Welcome back with another special episode. Before we get into I want to call her a special guest, but I feel like she's been a routine guest at this point, fan of the pod. Be sure to follow us on all of our social media at TikTok, Twitter, known as X, and Instagram at WRGO Pod. Be sure to check out our Linktree backslash WRGO, to check out all of our streaming platforms where you can watch us on YouTube, where you can see our episodes in full, and where you can catch us on TikTok. Once again, we are joined by Kayla from the executive T, who I feel like now is contributor slash fourth co-host slash everything else that she needs to be. So, Kayla, how are you once again?
I am doing great. I'm excited to talk because I feel like so much has changed since our last convo that we had. And I'll just start with saying I was wrong. Okay. I thought that Joe Biden needed to stay in the race. I didn't think that we had enough time to put Kamala at the top of the ticket. I didn't think it could happen. So I
Look,
was
you're not by yourself because I was on that hill with you. I was right there with you. I was right there with you.
Well, we can, I guess, just go around. We can, I guess, just start with you, Kayla, because obviously Mackenzie and I were saying, Buddy got to go. Henry and Kayla were kind of, Biden needs to stay. What had surprised you most, I think, about Kamala since Biden has stayed in? What is like the aspect of kind of her just being the main candidate now? What surprised you most?
Oh my God. I feel like there's so much I could say. For one, the overall enthusiasm kind of surprised me a lot. Um, that was one of the biggest things, just seeing how quickly everyone was kind of like, okay, we barely have 100 days left. This is our candidate. We're getting behind her. The fact that it kind of ended up working brilliantly, the fact that Republicans spent the whole RNC talking about Joe Biden, and now they're kind of get spun and they have this new candidate. Even Donald has been kind of implying that he wishes Joe Biden was still running because I think he thinks it would have been easier to beat him. And just overall, the new energy, I think is so cool. And knowing that she actually kept the same campaign team, like everyone there is the people who were on there before, but everything just feels so different now because I think a lot of like the fun cultural things, you can do that and it feels more authentic because, she is a lot younger. She seems more hip. It's just completely different her being the face of it from Biden. So I think so impressive just how quickly the campaign turned around things, how snappy they're getting. Oh my gosh, a lot of people have been saying, we were so tired of the when they go low, we go high. Yeah. People really wanted the punch. And I think we're finally getting that, like the press releases they've been putting out about Donald, the way they talked about his age, all of it to me is just brilliant. The surrogates they've got already, the concert with Megan Thee Stallion. I know everyone had mixed feelings about that. The
We're
concert with
we're
Megan Thee
we're gonna
Stallion,
we're gonna talk about that eventually. That's on
all
the
of
list.
that. I just feel like they have been so on top of. I mean, the historic fundraising, they have just completely. This has been like a crazy. Everything is different in just a couple of weeks. So yeah, I was not expecting any of this.
Yeah, Henry, I feel like Atlanta's kind of been like the touch point for a lot of this stuff. I mean, she had like her biggest rally there. Have you seen anything different in terms of like TV ads or just general enthusiasm? Because they're going after Georgia hard
I
now.
mean, Georgia is a big, big, big factor in this election. And that's what I like tell everybody. And you know me and Mackenzie hated, but my barbershop talk, I feel like that's when I reach my guys. When I go get my haircut, literally yesterday, one of the other barber walked in there. He was like, "Oh, now Joe out the race. Who you with now?" I was like, "Man, stop playing with me. You know I'm going for Kamala. Like, and she went to my school. She was like," and then he was like, "Oh man, I know you went to Howard." All that. But besides that, I agree with Kayla in the sense of just overall feeling a new energy. Even I see ads on YouTube, I see it on
Yeah.
Instagram, I see the ads, and then the ad is kind of, it makes you feel something. They play with them ethos right there because I feel like it attacks Donald. It speaks on policy and kind of to what Kayla said. Also, they're not being shy. They're being very blunt and direct about is going on, and that's what we all wanted. I guess. I guess we'll get into the cool social media things they're doing because an influencer recently
Yeah.
turned down and Charlemagne
Mhm.
commented on it, and I want to talk about that. But like
Yeah.
overall, I definitely think There's good energy. I love that I was able to participate in the 100 Black Men and like fundraising, and that was pretty cool. Seeing all those Black men behind her and like powerful Black men. You had like Reverend Warnock, of course. We know bro man who hosted it. I forget his name right now.
Roland Martin.
Yeah, Roland was on there. You had like just what's that? It was a lot of Black men on there, and for me, it was just empowering to see that, and then to also kind of like, I guess when I'm speaking to older Black men, they do seem excited. Like Kamala not playing. So it's cool. Mackenzie, I'm very curious to
Yeah, me
hear
too.
your take.
No, you know what? I agree with y'all. Like, it's almost refreshing to see the excitement, the energy. It feels different, and it's almost like, to me, especially with the VP pick, everyone talks about, how we were so excited for Kamala, but when we come to the VP pick, I always thought it was going to be okay to balance out the ticket. They're going to pick the conservative, and I don't know everything about Tim Walz, but like everything that I've looked up, it just seems that he's very progressive. And to what all of you have said, it just seems like with the ads, with the communication, how it's being brought to us, it feels like the party is actually leaning into what they claim to be. And when I say that, I mean, like, you say y'all progressive, so be progressive. Y'all say that y'all do not tolerate racism, call it out, face it. And I do feel like with Kamala, with the pick, and then everybody supporting it, it just feels like, are we really seeing almost a real shift in what the party, and I've always said this because I feel like it was a party thing. Like, what is the party really standing for? What are they, like, what are their morals? What do they really believe in, and what are they going to stand by? And I think that this might be a change in tide. I don't want to jinx anything, but just the energy, it does feel like this could be a game changer for real.
Yeah, and Kayla didn't jump in. I mean, I think the thing that I'm most shocked by is that I'll be frank. I mean, I think I wanted Biden to step out just because I think we just needed someone else. But I just didn't honestly. I'll be frank. I didn't think Kamala had this in her. Like, I'm honestly shocked. Like, I really did not think that she could kind of capture this that quickly because she was put in a really tough spot where all of a sudden in one day you're the nominee and you just got to go. And she's earned that for everyone, kind of that energy. Like, that starts at the top, because if she would have flopped that first, speech, that first kind of rollout, that first 48 hours, this would not have gone well. This actually would have been probably even worse, because then they would have said, oh, well, now we're just going to blame the Black woman who up in here. And like, it just would have fed on itself. But like, she's killed it in ways that like I honestly never thought she could. I always knew she was a good speaker, but even like Kayla, what you and I talked about, I think she's slowly getting more comfortable talking about like the personal side of it. Even like her like little digs at Trump, like during her first kind of big rally, saying that like I did all this stuff as a prosecutor. I know Donald Trump's type. Like, that's a bar. Like, that's something like that I think they're leaning into. And I think she's no longer kind of like afraid to like tell that story, which I think is honestly really refreshing.
And I feel like she bullied him into this debate. Like, she kept coming at you because, like you said, Noah, I feel like she's really leaning into her skills, what she's really good at. We know that she's a good speaker. We know that she can kill a debate. And I feel like in a way that she was like, I'm not going to allow him to, cowardly be out of this situation that I know that I can rise to the occasion. And since you have all of these things to say, let's put it on the main platform, because I think about how all of this is happening, and then the NABJ interview, and I really sat there and watched that whole interview too.
I did too.
I'm glad you mentioned that, because we got to get into that.
But
it's on my list. It's on my.
I watched it, and it was so bad. It was so bad for him, and I'm just like, she is going to. If anybody really watched this, sat down and watched this, and then saw Kamala, it's a no-brainer. It's a no-brainer.
You know what? I was talking to one of my friends about, I know we said we were going to talk about the Megan Thee Stallion thing, but I think that concert was like the day before, and I saw a bunch of people like outraged, like twerking at a rally, and I'll give my 2 cents on that like really fast. For one, I felt like she did a really calm twerk for like what she normally does. Like, I felt it was, and she was in a pantsuit, like it wasn't even it wasn't nothing to her for her standards. Like it was really nothing. And number two, I feel like they would have expected that if they didn't want her to twerk. I feel like they would have said that, but that's literally her brand. I don't know. I personally didn't have a problem with it, but
To jump in or not cut you off, I agree with everything you said simply because, like, well, both of these two on the podcast mainly, and then I think every black other they pandering, blah, 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 blah. This was a real genuine effort for them to kind of attract, they're in Atlanta. It's a young population of black people. And then on top of that, again, this is a battleground state. Most of the reason this would turn into like an actual blue state again is because all the transplants coming down from a New York and a DC and a Cali. So they're hip and cool and young. So I feel like that was a good merger. Go ahead.
I was not gonna say pandering. I was not gonna say pandering. I just thought it was just like, okay, girl, what? I mean, if this is what it's come to, by all means, I guess. That's
See, this is what it comes to. But Kayla,
working that around
not
is
the last
crazy.
episode
Like, whatever, girl.
But I mean, the funny thing, or I'll say this: I think there is a different. This was not that. I don't think this was that. Pandering is like Mackenzie and I's favorite thing to talk about. Like pandering is the cookout ad. That's totally different. This was actually, I think, an organic thing that they purposely saw, wanted to do, and what actually people misunderstood. It worked. The thing that they wanted to do was generate attention in the first 96 hours, and you know who's going to do that? Her. The amount of people that I saw talking about it, tweeting about it, posting it on their story generates interest, generates conversation. And that's where they succeeded. They was like, how do we get the most noise possible? Because people really don't know who she is. But you know what's going to, around people who look like us who aren't interested, you know what's going to get the attention? Megan Thee Stallion's there. That's like a smart thing that you do. And they did it. And I think people really like lost sight of like, what are they actually trying to do? It's not about her sitting up in there dancing in a crop top, which like on his face is like an episode of Veep. Like that's hilarious on the surface, but like why they did it worked. And the fact that people actually talked about it and got all riled up about it, it gets it into the conversation of why Kamala doing this. That keeps her name out there. And that's what they needed. And that was brilliant. And like that's like where her team is actually like, and funny enough, to Kayla's point, your point, like it's all the Joe Biden's teams. I actually think it kind of reinforces the narrative. Like the campaign is only as good as the candidate. And now you're seeing what these really smart people can actually do with a candidate who's actually like a net positive. They can really get creative. Where Joe Biden, they couldn't have that. It wouldn't have made sense. But with Meg and Kamala, now they just have so much more at their disposal where it's like, this is what you can do when you have a really good candidate. Nothing is off the table. You can be as creative as you need to be, and the candidate makes it work. And Kamala's been really good at making everything work because she's a good candidate. And I think that's like the biggest takeaway. But I digress.
Off of that, it's so interesting, you know, like being on social media and seeing what people are talking about because people are really selective about what they pay attention to. So like everyone is Megan Thee Stallion twerking. And I'm like, she gave an amazing speech that night at the rally. She covered like every aspect of policy. She talked immigration, she talked the economy, she talked reproductive rights, like everything was encompassed in that speech. And people are sitting here talking about Megan Thee Stallion. And then the next day you have Trump go to NABJ and it was making headlines, but the people who I saw mad about the twerking I don't think I saw any reactions from them to that NABJ speech. So I feel like in terms of like, we do have a lot of people super excited within our community of people who I'm not seeing or within our community, the people that we see that have issues with Kamala, I'm trying to kind of figure out how can we reach those people? Like, what do they really care about? Because they're not really fazed by Trump saying crazy stuff. Like, no one is surprised when Trump is saying crazy stuff. Like, that doesn't faze them. And I don't know. I just feel like the campaign, I do really want to see what their outreach is like to Black men in particular, because I know a lot of people are talking about white women. It's Black men I'm concerned about from the comments. And I do feel like it is important for the campaign to, you know, have some real outreach to them. I'm really looking forward to when they put out like their official policy, which I know they haven't done yet. I really kind of want to see how they are reaching out to the Black community because I'm all for the fun on social and all that, but I do think it'll be I mean, and they are already telling us their policy, but I'm just saying to have it like laid out and to be able to reference that and talking to these people who are more apathetic. I do hope that's something they care about because
Yeah, but
we've seen some of the Black men on social that are super anti.
yeah. Before we get into the Tim Walz pick, I don't know if Henry McKenzie, you both have mentioned the NABJ thing. I don't know if this is your time to kind of tee off on that, but I watched it too. And at first I was like, I don't know why NABJ is doing this, but I think I need to thank God that they invited him on because that was literally the best thing that Kamala could have asked for. He was literally crazy. And I think like because you actually watched the entire thing. I watched like 75% of it. To me, that's like gold. Him actually questioning this person's blackness. That's actually like the best thing that anyone could have asked for in terms of like an attack. I don't know. You watched it, whatever your takeaways. I was pissed that he went there, but then I think it's great. For the standpoint of him losing, that was the best thing that ever could have happened.
My only thing with it was it's just like at what expense? Like because it's just like we do know that he says crazy things. And there was a lot of things that having the Black women journalists up there, I thought that was also kind of strategic on NABJ's part because he has a history of being rude to them and there's no male journalists on stage and he immediately attacked the Black woman. And it was just like,
can I ask you a question that a couple people have posed? I'm kind of on the fence. I agree with the concept, not necessarily the application. Other people have been saying, and I'm a little bit receptive to this, that like, okay, NABJ has this opportunity to interview him on subjects that he would never care about or get asked about directly. But then to your point, it's a cost benefit analysis. I can actually do to the point of like, he's actually never been asked that. The Rachel Scott's first question was a really good first question that needed to be asked about why should Black people trust you when you've said all of these things. His answer was just terrible, which is reinforces the notion that he's crazy. But what would you say to the aspect of like, it's actually a good journalistic practice for people who are Black to ask him these questions?
I honestly feel like when I think of journalism, I really think about pushing the conversation forward. That's a great question, but if you know he's not going to give you an answer or just spew more lies, then it's like at what expense? Because then he didn't do anything. And after that question, and I'm not gonna. The question was. It was a strong first question.
It was a hard shot of alcohol.
Yeah, it was a hard shot. But he immediately attacked her like the entire time. So it was like there wasn't anything new revealed other than he's terrible. Like, but we already knew that before. We're gonna know that after. We're gonna know that next year. Like, there's nothing new to the conversation. So I just feel like at what expense?
And that's my thing. That's my thing with kind of like one, why they invited him, and then two, to the point of what Kayla was saying about like how they're like seeing Kamala's and policy come out would maybe possibly reach some people. But I think my thing is, especially with like Black men, like I've seen this buff mixed looking dude with a Trump 2024 shirt on. And like I just blatantly ignore him. And he purposely, like, I feel came to antagonize me. Like he stood by me. You keep looking up. Like I feel your energy. I'm not gonna give you what you want. So point, I feel like they are doing it to be just like anti, or if that makes sense. Like they are purposely antagonizing what's happening because they know like they can get attention from it. They don't. If you genuinely ask somebody, especially a Black man, why are you voting for Trump? The first thing the dumb gonna say is, "Oh, that my pockets was right." What's your tax bracket, bro? If you ain't over 250,000, that don't apply to you. So how was your pockets right? You was in a global pandemic, which the Senate gave you that, and he was fighting to get. He actually fought to give us less, and then he held it up to make sure his signature was on it. So your dumb could think this, and then again, what would be your reason to vote for Trump, bro? Like realistic. Oh, that nigga hard, bro. What?
So how do you reel them in?
You're not. That's the point I'm making.
You can't just give up on them, though.
It's not about giving up.
You can't give up. You can't give up.
It ain't about.
Oh no.
Go ahead.
Did you guys see that Instagram post that was really popular? And it was like,
yes, I did.
Blank needs to know. I feel like that's really effective messaging because like it caught my eye and it had like almost 400,000 likes in one day from an account that had 1,000 followers. That is crazy reach.
You need to know I sent that to the group chat like, wow,
Uh-huh.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's like the difficulty is like you have to reach them in the ecosystem in which these people need to be reached, and oftentimes that includes like streaming, all these kind of like weird podcasts that like the four of us would be like we would never listen to
Okay,
that.
look
That's
though,
where they have
Noah.
to start doing those ads. I know I'm agreeing with you. We
No,
can't
no,
give
no,
up.
no. Look, not to
No, go ahead. Mhm.
I guess disagree with you, but since we're talking about the digital outreach they're making, Kai Cenat, that little popular little.
I thought it was Sanat.
I don't
I
care
think
because
it's
I
the
don't
not
watch
too.
him. I don't care. He be doing
I don't.
stupid stuff. Kai, he be having hecka streams. He done had everybody
Mhm.
besides Shannon Sharp's show. That's like most popular podcast that I'm familiar with, and I don't watch either one of them. Point in case, he allegedly,
Yeah,
allegedly,
allegedly.
there was outreach for
Mhm.
Kamala to come on his podcast, and his response is, "This bad child stuck to it. I don't know, bro. I ain't got nothing to do with that." And then Charlemagne doubles down on it this morning on a Breakfast Club, talking about they shouldn't be doing that, or that's the wrong way to do it or reach the people. And to the point we're making, how do you reach those people who they don't give up? They don't, even if
Well,
they're aware of what's going on. They might not even know what Project 2025 is, but I bet you they know Trump in the race and they know Kamala's running. They don't care to research or read, or let's say even this post Kayla brought up, it wouldn't have reached their algorithm unless in case it came through a story, which they probably clicked through it. They didn't click into it. And if they did click into it, they swiped, seen all them words and like, bro, this. So
yeah.
like realistically,
Well. First off, we have to. I think the four of us, or one of us, had mentioned that he should go on Kai Cenat. One of us had mentioned that. That is in our archive. Someone
Yeah, I feel like
suggesting that.
Yeah.
I think you said. I think you had mentioned that. Yeah, you had definitely said
Club
that.
Shay Shay.
Yeah, he should. Yeah, she
Yeah.
should actually be on Club Shay Shay by
I
now.
don't see
That should
anything
actually
wrong
be a
with it.
thing.
Gilly,
I don't. I don't either.
You guys know Gillian Wallow. I think she should go.
Mhm.
I
Yeah,
think
like
yeah,
those are the things that you
that's
should
my
do.
that's my yeah, and no Breakfast Club this time around.
Yeah, no, no
And no
Breakfast Club.
shade room interviews either. Like,
Yeah, no. Mm-mm.
no.
Mm-mm. I don't trust it.
the
Yeah.
face of
I
disgust
will
is
say,
hilarious.
though, I don't know about Funny Marco though. Funny Marco would be a bit much for me.
Yeah.
But I think from the simple standpoint of attention, and like Kamala needs that. Like Trump at least has high
Maybe asking
beat.
those stupid questions though.
I don't think that matters. I really don't.
Well, they should do what
I don't think
Biden
it
did
matters.
with the one guy, that
The
light
hop,
skinned dude. It was on Complex.
I do want to ask.
Speedy. Yeah, that's a smart one. That's a smart one.
Yeah,
That was a good
yeah.
one. That was a good one.
Do you think Tim Walz has anything to like maybe connect with the male demographic? Maybe that would make his role
I
like.
think so.
I'm ready to talk about. So I made a couple. No, just a quick dive into his background. So he was a social studies teacher, which I think is amazing. Having people who have been teachers are typically great people. So someone in the White House having that background is awesome. I was excited when Jill Biden had been a teacher. So I think the VP being a teacher is super cool. He was also a football coach who won a state championship team. And I love the branding of how they're already kind of branding him as Coach Walz. I love that. He flipped a red district in 2006. And even though we're talking about him being progressive, he actually has a lot of support from both sides of the aisle. For example, we saw Joe Manchin and Larry Hogan put out statements expressing their excitement about him. And we also have people like AOC telling us their excitement about him. So when AOC and Larry Hogan can be excited about the same person, I think that is a big deal. He also was a veteran, which I feel like is another thing that can really kind of speak to that middle America crowd. He was a faculty advisor at his school. At the school that he taught at for their first gay straight alliance. He also has the working family appeal, and that has been like a really big part of his campaigning, which I think is such a big deal with where we are at right now with inflation, costs are high, like, you know, working class families, middle class, that always has a great appeal. And wrapping up, he legalized cannabis in Minnesota. He passed a landmark child tax credit, which is actually the most generous in the country, giving up to $17.50 per child. Also passed paid family leave and sick leave. Passed a law that would give free college tuition to families in the state who earn less than $80,000 a year. He's done a lot to protect abortion access, and Minnesota policies are some of the most protective of abortion in the whole United States. He's also supported gender affirming care, and he was one of the first Democratic politicians to call for a ceasefire. And so I think he is kind of a perfect candidate. I was actually really surprised that she picked her. She picked because like I think Mackenzie said earlier, it's kind of weird to see the Democratic Party doing the right things. I thought for sure it was going to be Shapiro, and I was going to have to be arguing with people about Shapiro because of his stance on Israel and all of that. So I was so relieved when she picked Walz. I really was not expecting that, but you know, based on that background, I think he is incredible. Like you get that progressiveness, and you get that grew up on a farm Midwesterner, veteran gun owner appeal. So I personally love it, and I feel like it's a testament that she's already making great decisions. So that is my spiel. I'll let y'all.
It sounds like Black men should get right behind them. We have men that need to be teachers. We need more male teachers. We have men that I don't know the stat, but however many conventions with marijuana. Then he has the cannabis stuff. There's a lot of things that men,
he checks a lot of
I feel
boxes.
like just rattling off all of those accolades that he has, even being a veteran. I think that all of those things speak to male heavily in ways where you talk about the working class, the middle class. Most of us are middle class. And I think that that's something that his strategy, I don't know, that sounds like something he could lean into, because I don't know what else would be.
Where I can appreciate him is that I think he's just also like a really good communicator. He's able to kind of like tie in a lot of these things in a way that's actually like how an average person would talk. I think they said he's the first presidential or VP candidate who doesn't have a law degree since the 60s. And I think you can actually tell because he talks in, I think, a very like matter of fact way. And to your point, Kayla, he's kind of snarky, like he's kind of sarcastic in like ways that like are actually really funny. Where the thing that I kind of was most impressed by is that he basically did a program in Minnesota that gave free breakfast and lunch to all kids. And someone had asked him a question of like, oh, well, how do you feel as kind of being labeled really liberal? And he was like, I didn't know feeding kids was a liberal priority. He was like, what a monster I am for making sure kids eat. And it's like that kind of like hit back is like the exact thing that like I think we need to do for Democrats. It's like, yeah, shame on me for making sure that people don't go to jail for marijuana possession. Shame on me for making sure that kids eat. And it's like that kind of like just fearlessness in terms of like, yeah, I did this and I don't care. And like you can label me as whatever you want, but like kids ate at the end of the day, so what? And I think that kind of like talking about it, but also he gave a really good answer to something where he was kind of talking about reproductive rights, but also how like he hit at Republicans. He's like, Republicans just want, you know, the child to be born. I both want you to have the ability to make whatever reproductive choice you want, but also you can family plan too. Free lunch, free this, free that, all these other services that talk about family planning. He actually had like really interesting kind of like thoughts about that. And I think he's just a really good messenger. And I like didn't expect him to be this good, but I think he's really, really good. And to your point, I think he's just like a really good pick. And it seems like outside of trying to get white men, it just seems like he was just the right pick, like for the job. And I think that's actually something that Kamala should really be proud of. Like, even if this doesn't work, if she wanted to win the election, no, or rather, I am saying this: if she wanted just solely to put her chances in the best position to simply win in November, she would have picked Shapiro. But I actually think that would have been bad. I think it was like the best thing for her to say, like, who actually has the best record? Who can I actually work with? That takes a little bit of like restraint to be like, I'm not just trying to win. I actually want to like win and do well. And Tim Walz allows me to do that, where Shapiro he just doesn't have the record this other person does and is able to talk like he does. Where I think like not a lot of people have that restraint. Like Trump basically picked JD Vance because he thought he had already won, and he adds nothing to the ticket. And now he makes weird comments about, you know, you having families or people not having children. Now it shows. He picked basically thinking he was going to win, and Kamala didn't do that. She was like, I could win by picking Josh Shapiro, but like I actually want to do well. And I respect the hell out of that. Where I think she's like saying, like, I really want to do good at this. So this person who's done a lot, to your point, Kayla, like you just rattled off 3 minutes worth of stuff. That's really impressive.
You
That says something to me.
At her rally, when they came out together, she mentioned that they're underdogs. And
Mm-hmm.
I like that she mentioned it because thinking of the grassroots feel that this campaign has, as we were talking about earlier, with the organizing calls people have been having, like, this is going to be hard. This is not going to be easy. We're excited and happy right now, but like we are the underdogs in this, and there's a lot of people that we have to turn out for this to actually work. So yeah, just adding that underdog note there. But
I will say this,
yeah.
and I don't want to jinx it, but like, and I don't pay attention that much to polls, but I'm also still impressed of how she is doing in these polls. Like, people like her. It won't be easy, but I definitely feel like it's going to be close. I mean, I hope, but I really don't feel like, I just feel like, I don't know, it's just a new energy. I feel like people are really excited, and just the polls, the money, how much she raised in the first day. I just feel like this is going to be a close race for sure.
Well, to like kind of poke at the close race thing, do you think this energy would have been there if they did this at the top of the year or just earlier?
No,
no,
I
and
don't
I
think
feel like
so.
we would have had
I
to
don't think so.
suffer. Yeah, I don't think so either. Even, I mean, people are still doing the like, oh, she's a cop, which go to the executive see our pin post. We address all of that. But the cop commentary has kind of like already been happening, and I'm just thinking of like a full like 6 months of hearing that, like, oh my gosh. But no, I think it would have definitely felt different if she had not jumped in this way.
And
I, I will say this though. I feel like it would have just had to been super dramatic, like in the transition. And I do think that there would have still been a period of somewhat confusion, but I still feel like people would have been like, this is exciting. I'm excited to be behind this because it is like just, and I've said this before with Biden, it was just boring. It was just
stale.
like,
Stale.
now this is changing something. Okay, like this is actually, I want to sit at the TV and watch what's going on. Like
The
before,
only
I just feel like,
the only reason I think I'm more on Kayla's side, I don't think this would have happened, is that one, if this would have happened like in January, I think other people would have tried to get her out. I think there would have actually been a real conversation, and I think the party as a whole would have turned their back on her. I wholeheartedly believe that, but I think we didn't have time, and I think Kamala's best friend in terms of the energy is that we haven't had time to like have those other conversations. It's like we got 90 days, we ain't got time for that right now. Let's go. Where if we would have had that time, I don't trust everyone to not want to get that black woman out of there. I really don't. And I don't think like everybody was kind of like, okay, yeah, we'll play nice. And like, it's Kamala's turn, because there was a risk there. Like picking up 100 days out before an election, we were all like, what? And I think it would have been a real conversation. But I think also for Kamala, it's like she's now being able to show her best self, because she doesn't, I think, honestly have time to like relitigate these other things. She just has to go. And I think that's probably bringing out the best in her. As we kind of get forward and closer to the election, I'll start with you, Henry. Do you have any kind of like final? We're going to do this again, because I feel like we always do, because news happens every week now. But as we get closer to the election, are there anything that kind of like you're looking out for, or that you're watching? I feel like you're chief on what the barbershops are talking about on the pod circuit, what the bros are saying before their 3:30 cut on Friday. But what are you looking out for?
You are so hilarious, bro. I just feel like, well, I was gonna ask though, because like, do y'all feel like it's just hype and no, like, would this just be a hype and no act behind it? But like beyond that, I'm scared still. I am excited that like there's energy there, and it seems like she is coming in with like air quote plan to talk about real issues that people care about on both sides. I do hate that all the social media stuff that I see is coming from people that look like me, when like I guess I'm a skinfold type of person. I'll worry about the kinfold later. Like we'll fight in the back on the backside, you know. That's just my truth to it. And me and Noah have even argued about this in terms of like, let's say like Clarence Thomas. I'll never take that man accolades from him, but he's a fuck. Excuse me. He
Tough,
ain't. You know what I'm
tough.
saying? He ain't. But he's also a Supreme Court justice. I can't do nothing about it. So like for me, Kamala, like she was a prosecutor. She did her job. If you looked into her record, which if you go check episodes back when she was running for VP, even probably during the Senate, we spoke
Yeah.
about her record and we talked about how she created programs that were progressive for Black people. I do think Walz helps like bring in or bridge that gap of the other space because like I mean, their first thing is she's a Black woman, and they're not going to vote for her. They choose race over democracy. That's just my opinion. He kind of bridges that gap, like, okay, this is a real democracy. If I do care about the future of this country, my children, their future, my grandchildren, so on and so forth, this is a real ticket that I can get behind. They're going to push legislation forward to protect our rights and so on and so forth. And we'll see like change and how we've been asking for maybe like excuse me younger leadership. I also see that out of this ticket to some degree compared to our previous candidates and like compared to what we're used to. These aren't just two older stuffy white dudes with a suit on that come from money or had a military background or as mentioned by Noah a legal background. So it's cool to see a progressive ticket. I'm glad there's energy there. I'm excited to like see the outcome. I do think like they need to go hard in rural parts of Georgia because I just so happen to be going up to North Georgia and I seen this huge Trump like bus and I almost like threw up. So like I really hope they don't do I don't want to say what Stacey Abrams did, but don't focus too much on Metro. You got to get outside because
Do
Metro
both.
got you.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's just my opinion.
Mackenzie, what are you looking out for?
I'm excited. I'm super optimistic. I truly believe in this ticket, and I don't want to jinx it, but it really is just a breath of fresh air. Yeah, I don't want to say too much, but I do feel I'm just super excited about this election. Before I was just kind of like whatever, but
It's really good to hear you say you're excited because I swear
I knew
for
I
the
was,
past
you know what I
year.
will say is that this is really, I think this is a testament to just life. I don't want to jinx it again, but if you have the chance to redirect and take the plunge and you'll never
Pivot.
know. That's
Pivot.
all I'm gonna say.
Kayla, as the leader of the executive team, what content, what things are you going to be looking out for that you're going to be guiding viewers on over the next
Yeah, I
coming weeks?
mean, I'm always looking for how people to react to things, like how things are landing with them. I'm really looking forward to see the Black media touch points that she does. I fingers crossed, please. I want to see a Club Shay Shay or Gillian Wallow. I would love that matchup. I think that would be great. Okay. And overall, I'm just looking for them.
Club Shay Shay would be
It would be good. It
very
would be good. No, it would be good.
entertaining.
It
Plus,
That's
would be
all
good.
I'm saying.
Shannon is getting like a little bit better with his
He's
intimacy.
getting better. Yeah, he is actually getting better. He's actually getting better. He knows how to reel it in now.
Yeah.
Where like if this was like his first four, I would have been like, oh hell no. But now he actually knows how to like
Yeah.
reel
So
it
I'm
in.
definitely looking forward to seeing some more of those fun moments. Kamala HQ has been killing it on TikTok. So I'm
Yeah.
really liking how they're engaging the younger audience. A lot of people, it's going to be their first election voting. And I really want them to keep hitting in terms of policy on Project 2025. I know Trump is trying to distance himself from it, but I think that's a huge thing that people have kind of been talking about. I really want to see them keep talking about abortion. Um, we know Democrats have had an issue with messaging, and I feel like this election they are doing like a really good job of laying out what's at stake. So I'm definitely going to be looking for that, and overall, just seeing the momentum keep going and how it really shapes out. The time is almost in November, which is crazy. So there's a lot to do in a little bit of time.
Yeah, before we close, I always give my thoughts. Henry, I actually think this is real, like in terms of like the enthusiasm. I actually think it will translate a little bit. I think it's like it's money raised, it's volunteers. I think they're just getting a lot of people just involved. And I think to your point, it will be hard to kind of sustain that. But I didn't think they would be able to sustain it this long. Like this is, I feel like the longest honeymoon period I've ever seen, where it's like there's just more good stories, and Trump kind of keeps giving them good stuff to kind of hit him for. So I'm actually really excited. Like to Mackenzie's point, I too am not trying to jinx this, but like this is really, really close. And like I never thought I would say that, but like I think this is actually a toss up now. And it actually is going to depend on. Yeah, go
Hey,
ahead.
you guys, the next president of the United States is a Howard graduate.
There you go.
Howard will not stop talking about. I was thinking about that the other day. Like we are never going to hear the end of this from Howard.
Oh, please. Yeah, no.
You already know
in,
it's lonely up here, my boy.
So Kayla, as always, we will be sure to follow everything that you are doing at the Executive T. And if you want to follow us, please be sure at TikTok, Instagram, and Twitter at WRGO Pod. Be sure to like, listen, and subscribe on all of our streaming platforms, including YouTube, where you can watch all of our videos in full. So be on the lookout for the next collab, and thank you very much.